A lot can change in 10 years. As we enter a new decade and count down to the Xbox Series X and PS5's debut, let's look back at the tech of the 2010s that changed the gaming industry, for better or worse. In the early teens? Did we ever decide what to call this decade? Whatever. A decade ago, the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and Nintendo Wii were entering their twilight years. PC gaming was allegedly in decline, and anyone that said VR was probably talking about the Virtual Boy or Johnny Mnemonic. But in 2012, Oculus revealed the Rift, a virtual reality device that aimed to truly achieve presence, the feeling when you put on a headset of being present in a virtual world. The Rift's success would go on to define much of the decade when it comes to tech innovation. VR was heralded as the next frontier in gaming, and Valve and Sony quickly followed suit with VR headsets of their own. Still, slow user adoption has kept most developers from dedicating major resources towards making VR games. And without games, people don't have a reason to buy headsets. Chicken, egg. But however you look at it, VR is here to stay. And with the announcement of Half-Life Alyx coming in just a few months, VR might finally have the killer app it needs to hit critical mass. Probably. Maybe. The last decade also redefined what a game console generation actually is. Every generation before the PS3 and Xbox 360 had a clear divide from one to the next. You couldn't play Ocarina of Time on a Super Nintendo after all. But the PS4 and Xbox One changed things. Or more specifically, the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X. For the first time, we had new consoles that were more powerful than their predecessors, but otherwise not remarkably different. There aren't any PS4 Pro exclusives or games that require an Xbox One X. They'll just look and play better if you have the more powerful machine. In other words, it's almost exactly how things work on PC. Speaking of PC, the last decade ushered in a real golden age of PC gaming. Indie games flourished thanks to the availability of powerful development tools, along with the continued rise of digital storefronts like Steam. On top of that, Kickstarter, thanks Double Fine, also opened a new way for small devs to access funding. Of course, PCs have gotten a lot more powerful too. Where 1080p and 60 FPS used to be the gold standard, those numbers are now pretty pedestrian for high-end machines. 1440p and 4K, not to mention ridiculously high frame rates and even ray tracing, are now more than achievable. Meanwhile, there's a new player on the block, Stadia. A handful of services tried their hand at game streaming in the last decade, but Google Stadia is the first one to truly swing for the fences. The service still has a long way to go to really succeed, but for now, it's an incredible technical achievement that has the potential to shape the gaming industry for years to come. Like VR a decade ago, game streaming isn't really ready for prime time yet, but it's a glimpse of a could-be future where consoles and PCs are a thing of the past. Now this whole time, Nintendo has been doing its own thing. All the way back to the Wii, Nintendo has positioned itself as a maker of unconventional, sometimes downright wacky, but always fun hardware. The Wii U was largely a failure, but its spirit of a combination tablet console lives on in the Switch. I grew up playing Tetris on the Game Boy in the backseat of my mom's car. The fact that I can now play a full-blown Legend of Zelda on an airplane, or, let's be real, on the couch while Netflix plays on the TV, is nothing short of amazing. And as for wacky tech, Ring Fit Adventure and its resistance-based Ring-Con carries on the torch that was lit by Wii Fit and its balance board. And while we're talking about cool peripherals, controllers actually evolved a bit for the first time in a while, thanks to the Xbox Elite adding paddles and trigger stops to the back of the controller. Sony has followed suit with the new DualShock 4 back button attachment, and while we haven't seen the PS5 controller just yet, it wouldn't surprise me if back buttons and trigger stops are included by default. Meanwhile, Microsoft's Xbox Adaptive Controller is a fantastic leap toward making games more inclusive for people with disabilities. Between more Nintendo shenanigans, VR, streaming, and of course the next-gen consoles, it's never been a more exciting and innovative time in games. We can't wait to see what's next. I'm Bo Moore, Executive Tech Editor for IGN.